Welcome to the comic zone. Welcome to the comic zone.
What's up, nerds?
What up?
This is the Comic Zone. Got a very special episode for you. And why is it special? Because we're talking across the Spider-Verse. Now, normally, after a movie comes out, we like to let it settle for a while. And especially since we just talked about the first movie on the last episode.
Right.
But it was that good. We can't wait any longer. We had to talk about it right away because, yes.
It's fresh on our minds, for one.
And it was that good.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, and Mike's joining us remotely. He's working for the man. And
What's up? Yeah, I'm calling in on this one. Might be a few of these where I'm doing this, but
hey, you gotta earn that bread.
yeah, unfortunately.
Hey, this stuff that movies don't pay for themselves. Comic books don't pay for themselves.
That's right.
Right.
But what did you think
So
of
me
it?
and John went to it. When did we go?
Opening
What
night,
day was that?
Friday afternoon.
Yeah, so we went really early, and then Bill, you went later on.
Yeah, we went just
I
Sunday.
mean, personally, I thought it's damn near perfect movie, other than the ending, which we'll get to. We won't do too many spoilers right now. But
Oh,
Good job.
Save the. Yeah, it's hard not to.
Yeah.
One thing that I really love about both of the Across the Spider-Verse is the visual aspects of it, because it looks like a comic, and not only that, but it pays homage to those original artists.
Yeah.
Like this one kind of started off talking about Spider-Gwen, and it followed the Spider-Gwen story very accurately. I mean, I'm not going to pick it apart, but it was done great. And what I really enjoyed about that comic is when the emotions of it changed,
Right.
so did the background. The colors changed around the characters, and this movie
you remember
did
I was
that.
saying that?
I do. I remember.
I mean, and it was
And
like,
only in Gwen. It's only in Gwen's universe too. The colors bleed in the background. So when she hugged her dad, it went from blue to bright pink.
mhm.
As soon as they embraced.
And anytime she had a massive change in her emotions, it did that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very true of the comic.
And that's just her in her universe. It doesn't happen anywhere else.
And it's also, we might as well put it this way too, that was like the first 10, 15 minutes of the film before the credits even rolled.
Yeah.
It was all Gwen, and it fit too for what, like, by the time the credits rolled, you're like, oh shit, we didn't see those yet.
Yeah, it was
Yeah, right.
like, oh yeah.
You actually said that during the movie. You're like, that's before the credits start.
Yeah,
But it almost
It's fucking crazy in the beginning.
even like the first one, it would kind of like stop. Okay, I'm Spider-Man, and kind of like do a rewind and it, like slap the comic cover on the movie stack, and it was the
That
comic that
comic.
they were talking about.
And they still did this on this one too.
Yeah.
For a lot of the different characters.
But it wasn't as much,
No.
and I think it was good so they could get into the meat and the bones of this story. And I think the first spoiler I've got to give, which doesn't spoil anything, is that it's to be continued, which I think was my biggest complaint. But at the same time, that means, okay, there's more coming.
And it also means they didn't try to rush the story, because I think they do that sometimes.
Yeah,
you throw
absolutely.
too much together and then you try and rush to get to an ending. And I think we were talking about that on the Transformers show, that the Transformers episode, like the last film just seemed discombobulated because they tried to do too much and then get to an ending, and it never happened. So
Yeah. And one cameo that I know you were kind of looking over at me when it happened was we got Lego in the MCU now.
Yes.
There's a Lego Spider-Man
Yes.
alternate. And that was like the bee's knees.
and they said that he was one of the better Peters.
You're one of the better ones.
Yeah.
And that was just awesome. I have many of the variants of, especially the original one, as far as Lego minifigs. So many great cameos. Some of my favorites was seeing Ben Reilly.
Yes.
And he's just so
Yeah,
broody.
he's super funny in there too, all dramatic and like this shit's hilarious.
Checking out his flexing and
Yeah, and actually talking about his well-defined muscles. And I like
Yeah,
that
when he's like,
Yeah, go ahead.
go ahead.
No, you go
No,
ahead.
you're good.
when he was talking about his muscles, you know what I mean? When he had Miles in the headlock, you know. Look at my well-defined bicep.
I have you trapped in my well-defined physique or whatever the fuck he says.
But it's interesting. He's such a. If you look at his character and his full arc, you know, he's probably one of the most tortured.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Of the Spider-Man. You're a clone. Oh wait, I guess you're not a clone. You are the original, but you're still gonna be second best.
Yep.
And then later on, he becomes a villain. And if you're following the comic book story now, he's actually trapped in limbo.
Oh, so that's wow. Because I knew he had turned into like the Jackal or something.
Chasm. It was, and he kind of had like a Spider-Man kind of electro kind of vibe. And then that was in the most recent version. I did a review on it. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then also had Hollow's Eve, who was an interesting villain. She was, whatever mask she put on, she then became that person. So from a writing standpoint, I found it fascinating. She put on a werewolf mask. She becomes a werewolf. She puts on, you know, the maiden. She's a maiden, or whatever character it was, fairy. You know, so whatever superpower she needed to find the mask to transform herself into it. She was a villain, but then they've sort of recently flipped her over into a
anti-hero.
Okay. Straight up. I mean, it's almost like straight up hero.
Oh, wow.
I mean, to me, it was a little bit of a turn off because it's like, wait, she was a badass villain. And then you're like, wait, no, I'm kind of good. No, it's like,
well, that brings a point. I'm glad you brought that up because that seems to happen more often, I'd say, in the Spider-Verse, for lack of a better way of saying it. Because remember, Venom started off as a villain, and he's more of an anti-hero than an actual hero. But
that took some time. But you're right. It's true.
But that's happened with a lot of that happened with a lot of different characters in the Spider-Verse. And in the film, Prowler was one of my favorite characters. But by the time Prowler got his own book, he was a good guy. So, you know, the way they've been showing him as a bad guy in the original Into the Spider-Verse movie, and then, you know, you'll get some tastes of him in this one, which we won't go into just yet. But it was very nice to see those little things. And I'll wait till we go any further because I've got a lot of tie-ins on that part.
So any other reactions from you Mike, as far as before we get into spoilers, anything you want to say? About
what do you give it 10 out of 10?
For me, as far as a comic book movie, it's close to a 10.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking like a 9.8.
Yep.
A 9.8 grade because you can never get the perfect 10 grade of a comic.
But it's close to a 10 as you can possibly get it. I definitely agree with that 9.8.
And you know, it did a lot of fan service, but I think it did the right balance. And you know, I think one thing we've been critical of the MCU has been it's kind of too much comedy. Mm-hmm. But I think with a character like Spider-Man, that's so integrated into his career, whether that's Miles, Peter Parker, or whoever, that sarcastic, witty response is part of it. It's kind of part of his
mythos.
Yeah. And the canon.
Mm-hmm.
It is the canon of, which is something I know you wanting to talk about later, interesting points. So it was great.
I read something today online, actually at work at the radio station, and it was that it's the highest rated movie ever on Letterboxd, which is kind of like the Facebook of movies. It's a social media thing, and it's not the highest rated Spider-Man movie. It's not the highest rated Marvel movie. It's not the highest rated cartoon. It's the highest rated movie ever on that entire social media platform. So that's saying something.
That's like the people's voice, not like
yes, yeah.
It's not like fucking.
I mean, if we're looking at it, it's going to be the demographic of whoever they are. But definitely more user. It's the
it's not like the Oscars. It's people that are using it.
I was thinking like the Rotten Tomatoes. There's
that's what I meant.
There's
it's not
two versions of the Rotten Tomatoes. There's like the fans, and then there's also like the critics. and it's like, all right, who's who, and yeah, but
Well, I try to draw my own conclusions on movies. I try not to look at any of that too much.
I'm the same. I
You know
agree
what I
with you
mean?
on that.
I don't like
I will post.
having other people's opinions in my head when you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
And for the longest time, that was the reason why I didn't like watching trailers, because I didn't want that influence. I wanted to go in cold. I think since this podcast, I've always been like stretching to find out more faster and sooner, and like had a need for it. But before then, it's like I want to go in cold. I don't want the marketing team to kind of tell me what this movie is going to be before the director,
well, you
before
know,
the actors do.
and on top of that, my dad was here this weekend, and he went with me and Sean to go see this. And uh, before you got there, he was as we were walking inside, he was talking about how he doesn't really like watching trailers anymore because they put all the best parts in there a lot of the time.
That's true.
And that, I mean, just like you were saying, Bill, like, I mean, if you go in cold and don't see any of that, then, I mean, like Guardians, for example, they put a lot of shit in that trailer. They tried to hide some things, like they made sure to change Rocket's voice in it to be his older voice instead of the kid one. In a part, it was a part when he's talking about flying off into the infinite blue sky. You remember?
Yeah.
But in the trailer, it's Rocket's like adult voice saying it, and not like the kid version.
Well, they put a lot of what I'd say were things to throw you off in the Guardians trailer, because like they showed all these different things that made you think that maybe Quill was going to die and stuff like that.
He was just drunk and passed out in the opening scene.
Yeah, a lot of that was very early on. Yeah, and honestly, I like when they do that, because it does throw you off. You think you know what's going to happen. It's like
Especially now, they're
you're like, damn, they're showing us like the whole story, and then it's not even close to what you thought.
Let's get into one thing though. For the people that saw the first film, and this is more for the non-Marvel, non-comic book heads, there was a post-credit scene that kind of gave us a little knowledge of what was going to go on. Very, very little. The post-credit scene on the first film shows Miguel O'Hara talking to his AI, Layla, which is straight from the Spider-Man 2099 comic.
Yep.
And that was basically the only tease we got. We didn't know anything else. We just knew he was going to be a part of the new film. And there's been, probably a good 3 to 4 years since the original?
That was, I think I wrote it down in last, 2018.
Yeah.
I think is when the first one came out.
So that's like 5 years.
So that's pretty good that they can stick to that too. You know?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the fanfare and just how much people... Like, I was out looking for the first one in Denver when I was kind of just shopping around. And I was asking, like, the clerk if they had a copy of it. And he's like, yeah, it's, like, one of the best well-written Spider-Man movies ever. It's like, you're not the only one to say that.
Right.
He was just, like, he just brought that out naturally. And it's like, it has that kind of reputation. And it deserves it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Especially as, I know I've said this a few times, and I'll probably say it a few more times, just like, it felt like reading a comic book. And, and it's...
Yeah, it really does. Just the way that they would, sometimes you would get, like, the comic book panels.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It just to...
Even when they were talking to themselves, so you get, like, the speech bubbles and sound effects.
Yeah. And even like the texture of the paper and the patterns and even like in the opening scene where it shows like the statue for Tristone, I forget whatever the company is, or Sony. It's like staticking, and it's showing all these different flavors of comic art.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of get that feel of all these different dimensions and like Spider-Punk. Which I think we're getting close to it. I think, from here on out, you've been warned. If you haven't seen it,
it's a spoiler button.
We are in spoiler territory. So Spider-Punk did not disappoint me. As an old punk rocker, I liked it. Now, I read the recent run of Spider-Man Spider-Punk, and I was very disappointed by it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I saw this Spider-Punk because it felt more like ironic in its comic. It's kind of like half joking with itself, whereas the comic felt a little bit, it's like, you disagree with me, so you're a fascist. You know, and it's like, come on. It's like, I'm beyond that in my age. I know there's a little bit more to life than just that.
Yeah, it's more than just white and black. There's that gray area.
But one of my favorite lines, I think, of the movie, when Spider-Punk is talking to Miles,
Mm-hmm.
and Miles like, well, why do you in there? I want that watch. He's like, make your own watch. It's like, you don't need them, make your own.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's so like DIY punk. I mean, where, it started, it's like, just like why, the Nate, podcast kind of started up. It's, you don't need the radio station. You don't need that. You do it yourself.
Don't need the tea. Yeah.
Well, it shows that he's very independent and resourceful as fuck. Because he's just like, yeah, just make your own. Like what the fuck?
You don't need them.
Like,
you need you. You need to believe in you. Kind of almost like what his mom, Miles's mom, was saying, which kind of echoed throughout the whole thing. And those kind of moments, I think, are what make a good Spider-Man story. Those grains of like ultimate truth that resonate. Whether you're young and a teenager or you're an older guy, like I'm gonna say us.
Yeah.
It's like, hey son, listen to that. That's legit. That is the best advice you could get on a graduation kind of weekend,
Mm-hmm.
And like with Gwen's reactions with her dad near the end, and kind of those father-daughter moments where he quits the Force because
of her speech,
and that he's dedicated to her no matter what. And same thing with her mom was like, if those people don't believe in you, it's like, fuck them. That's not what she said.
Yeah,
but that's the punk rocker coming out in me.
Mm-hmm.
And finding people that you believe in or that believe in you and then can collaborate. And those messages, I think, are what makes Spider-Man live on. And those stories are keep getting told, and why we have the multiverse and all these various men, women, cats, pigs, horses. Cars. I forget.
The Peter parked buggy. That was because that's the actual, the Spider-Mobile, but that one was alive. I thought that was a little cute piece of comedy that they threw in there.
Dude, there was a lot of shit going. That's one thing about the movie. There's so much going on in the background, especially when you got to like the headquarters of
Nueva York. Yeah, that's Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099. That's his universe where their base of operations was.
Right. So, and you just looking at all the Spider-Men and Spider-Women and, just the vast, and every one of those is an actual character, right? Like somebody that they didn't just make shit up and throw them in there. Every
there
single
might have
one
been
of
a few.
those.
I don't know. I couldn't identify everyone, but there were
There's
definitely
probably some that.
Especially when you get
There's
to those
probably
wide.
some that didn't necessarily have like a run or something in comics, but maybe they added some that.
There was. I had to have both of you guys read the Old Man Logan, the first run.
I have not.
Yeah.
All right. You remember? You remember how like one of the first missions that Logan and Hawkeye went on, and when they were driving the spider buggy, they were trying to get some information from the Kingpin, and come to find out this particular Spider Woman had already killed Kingpin and taken over his territory. But not to go too much into Old Man Logan for folks that haven't read it, even though that's been out for years. The Spider Woman that killed Kingpin was actually Hawkeye's daughter. And she was half black and very muscular, like the same size as like Kingpin, but a little bit more muscular than like overweight. And I saw her in the background in one of those scenes when they first started chasing Miles. I was like, oh shit, that's the one from Old Man Logan. So I don't know. Like I'm sure that there were a bunch that we missed. Yeah. I know there are a bunch that even I had never seen before. And I don't think like even out of all three of us, I'm the only one that's seen it twice. And I still didn't catch everything. So I know there's a whole lot
Yeah,
more.
it's one you definitely gonna have to go back and just like pause,
Mm-hmm.
And I loved how
you
they
know, a bunch of shit and just like look through and see what you missed. Like, cause there's so much there, it's like sensory overload.
Yeah, definitely.
and I loved how they added the real movie pieces into it. We got
Yes.
pictures of Tobey Maguire and
Andrew
Uncle
Garfield.
Ben dying in those kind of little hexagon frames, and yeah, Andrew Garfield. There's little pieces with Venom. We got the clerk at the Venom stores, and we're getting the real life, live action mixed in with the cartoons.
And and nobody was expecting that.
No, that was such and Donald Glover
Yes.
as Prowler, locked in kind of
A cell. Yep.
TVA jail, if
Yep.
you will. You know,
Yeah, that's the best. Wasn't that the shit? And then you're seeing, you know, even some of the you know, when they were showing, like they were talking to Miles about, like all of them have that like lose somebody event, basically that constant,
Right.
and it was showing like all the different examples of all the different like dying Uncle Bens and all this shit, you know.
Right.
And
so
it
the
showed
canon,
Tobey Maguire and
the canon. So, which is also a literary term.
That we use all the
Canon.
time.
Yeah, you know, that's
What do you
not
mean?
canon.
When
So-
we talk about comic
Oh,
books.
I know that.
But so
I'm
that's
saying, what do you mean?
so in the movie they called kind of
Those events.
those events canon events.
Oh yeah.
So which is
yeah, they did,
straight
huh?
like a literary definition of it's so meta
Yeah,
in, its,
yeah.
in its use.
I know.
You know, it's like oh, TVA, you missed it there.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm not going to front. I almost came on myself the first time he said that and used it. And I was like, oh, yes, they used one of our nerd terms in the film. Yes, yes.
and it's
Yeah.
and it's more. And I'm trying to remember how to spell it because it's spelled a little different. But
But
it's
my point
literary. It's
was-
beyond just fanboy.
Yeah.
You know, it's how, you know, in lit classes, that's what's English canon, you know, Mark Twain and those kind of things. You need to know this as a base to understand the greater concept of literature and art.
And then I also
Right.
liked
Understand.
my,
in
my whole point.
quotations.
My whole point with what I was saying
Mhm.
was just that, like, it even showed, you know, Tobey Maguire and the Uncle Ben from those movies
Mm-hmm.
in
Ye-
those.
Yeah, they showed, the Tobey Maguire one, the Andrew Garfield one. I didn't see it, but Bill did, and you said your dad saw it too, the original 1980s live-action TV show Spider-Man. And I was looking for that.
Did you see it the second time?
No. Like, that's what I'm saying. There was so much going on. Even the second time I was looking for it, and I still missed it.
It's pretty, like, like that part is pretty much, like, he's not off in the background. He's, like, swinging at Miles during the chase,
Mhm.
and it plays, like, the old music for a second,
Oh,
like, while he's swinging at him.
but then he can't like move, or he's kind of like a cutout. Was that him?
Yeah, he's like a flap, like,
He couldn't bend. He's
Yeah.
like, oh, I missed him. And he doesn't like move at
Oh,
all.
okay. Yeah, I did see that one. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, he
that's
couldn't
his
articulate
story.
because he's just a cutout moving across the background. Because I guess he was that old school.
And then they had the pointing sequence.
Yeah.
Get
that-
Spider-Man. Wait, you.
Well, and by the way, showing a live action Donald Glover and those other live action things that they had
Right.
in there, like the Uncle Ben thing with all that,
Right.
like that ties it into the MCU. So this movie is now,
Yeah.
like, these movies are part of the MCU too.
Yeah. And,
Like, how dope is that?
that's awesome. And like they did the same thing like with the web and how Kang was the man who whatever from Loki that Kang was talking about,
Yeah.
those divergent lines and stuff like that. And that was like the exact same diagram before it went into the web. So
Yeah.
I like that they did that.
So then also kind of, does it also tee up Madam Web?
I think so. That's what I was.
So they've been
Yeah, I
talking
saw
about
her in there.
rumors about that's kind of the next or possible live action
Mm-hmm.
Spidey movie. Also, we got
Wasn't she
Craven
in-
thrown
wasn't
out there
she,
too. Wasn't she? What?
Wasn't she in this movie?
Could have been. Like, I didn't see her, but like I said, there were
Not
so
a
many.
major
There was
part.
yeah, there was so yeah, she wasn't a major part, but to say she wasn't in the background somewhere, it's not. I can't
I think
say
she
definitely.
was, dude. I'm
I
pretty
saw
sure she
Silk.
was.
I saw Silk.
Yeah, but yeah, there were too many to identify.
Yeah, literal hundreds.
All pointing at each
Yeah,
other.
I mean, it's fucking crazy how many, like, just how much shit's going on in the background. Just during that chase scene when he's trying to escape
Right.
and get back home, and that was very like Scooby Doo esque to me, the way the chase went down.
In some aspects.
What was the race movie when they had like the Great American Race or something? It's kind of older, Hanna-Barbera
Yeah.
style. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, because it was
Yeah.
it was a bunch of the Scooby Doo esque Hanna-Barbera.
Scooby Doo was
Yogi.
one of them,
Yeah.
and like the caveman guy.
Yeah, they
and
do
they felt like that.
They do
a
like
little
the
bit.
death race thing.
Yeah. Blue Falcon and Dog Wonder.
Yeah, Grape Ape.
Yep.
Grape Ape was on like driving a tiny little car, you know.
Exact same. Yeah, definitely had those type of vibes, and especially the comedy aspects that they threw into it. And I think, speaking of that, we haven't really touched on was the main villain. I guess they're partially
Spot.
two, but yeah, the Spot. I think they did an excellent job with the Spot.
I mean, at first you're like you couldn't. It's like you didn't take him serious. Miles didn't take him serious.
Nobody did. Yeah.
And you kind of see him slowly going darker into villainy, as far as just kind
And
of like
he becomes like a fucking god.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like he,
very null
like,
looking, or
dude, he went from being a joke to fucking menacing as hell by the end of the movie. You're like, you would be terrified of that guy.
Yeah.
Like, no doubt.
But yeah, there was those very comic aspects of Spot early on. You know what I mean? Like even with them punching each other because him opening up those portals. And I think they did a great job on picking his voice. But yeah, watching his arc as the villain, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he had a lot of. I mean, he kind of I guess his personality and like everything, him overall changed along with each time his powers got upgraded.
Yeah.
that's true. That's a
each
very good
time-
point. Each
It's
time
like
he
they
leveled up,
used
he got
that-
more corrupt.
Yeah.
Yeah, he became more. Yeah, because by the end he wasn't funny at all.
No. But he was also, he was more of an issue too. It wasn't like Miles or any of the other ones that were fighting him were able to overpower him. It was like, yeah.
They couldn't do shit to that guy.
No,
by the
not
end
at
of
all.
the-
He was like flicking him, like literally flicking him away with ease by the time we got to
Yeah.
the end of this chapter.
Dude, and that's crazy. Like, in the way they upgraded his powers, they didn't make it
Unbelievable.
some cheeseball bullshit. Like, the way they did it was super good.
Especially after he
Like-
kicked his own ass literally early on.
That was actually
Oh,
hilarious.
yeah.
He literally stuck his foot through a hole and kicked his own
Yeah.
ass.
That shit's funny. But that was when he couldn't control the portals.
Right.
In a what if I wonder if Miles is like, all right, it's like I caused this to you. What if he tried to fix him and actually take him seriously? I mean, obviously wouldn't have rolled into the plot that it did.
Right.
But
You think
is that going to be a lesson
he would have
Miles will
taken
learn?
his help if he offered it?
Maybe. Early on, maybe. By the time after he escaped the first time, I think it was more of a fact that he would have done it anyway because he was laughing at him and he had a point. Because remember how he was like, I made you a hero. You turned me into a monster. You know what I mean?
Right? He's like, I don't even have my face anymore.
Yeah. My family won't look at me.
And bro, like, and he's funny and all in those moments and shit, but like, if you imagine what that would be like that would be really horrible, honestly.
But
So it's no wonder he hates Miles.
But that's, and like I said, that's one of the things that's, I think, very similar with a lot of Spidey villains. You feel sorry for them. It's not like they're trying to be villains because you know, they want money or they want to control the world. It's not that Cobra Commander thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's something happened to them. They had a bad accident, or they were trying to better humanity, like with the lizard, and there were adverse side effects. And this guy,
And a lot of times it's personal.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially with Spider-Man villains.
I would agree. Now, I have a question for you guys.
What about
And this is one of the things I was wondering about when it came to. I was wondering how they were going to do that from the trailer, but we kind of look at Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, as kind of like a bad guy. He's doing it for the right reason, and you can see why so many of the Spider people are following him.
He's taking the logical path that, you know, it doesn't. What am I trying to like? He's trying to do the right thing, but his methods are a little questionable.
But
For
now,
sure,
but when you, but,
especially them allowing people to die because that's what it takes.
right?
Yeah.
Now, as a military person, whenever it gets to that question, that's always, you know, like the one, would you kill a baby to save an entire airplane, or let one person die to save an entire city? And you could see where a lot of the Spider people, it hurt their soul, you know what I'm saying, to have to agree with them, but they were trying to do for the better good. So
But they knew he was. I mean, he wasn't wrong though.
right,
Either.
and
But you brought up an interesting point about canon events and Spider-Man 2099.
didn't have one.
He didn't have one. Unless you're talking about his disease.
Yeah, but he didn't have an Uncle Ben moment.
He never really did. He was kind of an asshole, and anybody that left him is because he pushed him
But
away.
didn't he say he was an anomaly too? Because he's so much different than the other Spider-Man.
He said
That's a good question.
he didn't call himself an anomaly. He called Miles the original anomaly, so maybe he did and I missed it. But his main reason for
He
saying
kind of seems like one because he doesn't really line up with the rest of Spider-Man.
well, and
Yeah,
that was the point that I
exactly.
made.
He
Yeah,
is so much different with his power set, his personality,
and he has
all
no
of that.
ties
he's
to a
so
Peter at
far
all.
out of line. He's so far out of line from the rest of the Spider-Verse, and so I mean, he's an anomaly too, I would say.
But he's also 200 years in the future.
Yeah,
you got to
he's from
think.
the future.
Yeah, most of the other Spider people are still from the same timeline, just an alternate universe. You know what I mean? Which is why even
That's a
though
good
Miles
point,
isn't
too.
a Peter, he had a Peter in his life, and which sounds really
He had a
bad.
Peter.
Yeah, but and so did Gwen. You know what I mean? Like a lot of them had
I
their.
bet she did.
Leave it to you,
She had a choice of Peters.
right?
No, but you get what I'm saying. Like I was thinking that the whole movie. I was like, this dude is talking about Miles being the anomaly, and maybe that's true.
Right.
But like, so is he. Like he's an anomaly too. He's nothing like the other Spider-Man. Like you just said, canon events. He doesn't have one.
Yeah, and honestly, and the reason I said that was because even Miles had a canon event, at least in the film, because his was losing his uncle. It wasn't Ben, but he lost, the Prowler, you know what I mean, when he got shot by Kingpin in the first film. So he had.
And I want to.
Go ahead.
Speaking of Prowler, let's talk about, you know what, like, so you find out later in the movie that Miles in another universe is the Prowler and not Spider-Man. I wonder if he is the only Miles in the multiverse that is Spider-Man.
That's a good question.
Because you didn't see other Mileses when he was in the... Like, he must be the only Miles in the multiverse that is a Spider-Man.
See, if you get into the comic lore, you've got the clone universe, the clone saga, and so he's got a lot of clones. And
Well, that's different, though.
It is, but we also get one that runs its own kind of alternate universe and is like an evil kind of Hitler version of Miles.
Oof.
And makes a bunch of kind of, their police all wear the Spider-Man logo, and they're like a Gestapo of robots just go in and hear his his evil rule.
Right.
So, but is that multiverse? Is that clone? I think there's a little bit of kind of grayish area there. It's probably more on the clone side. So don't know, without taking off their masks, you never really know.
That's true.
I would say there'd have to be.
Yeah, that's a good point. Some of those could have been Miles with different suits, I guess. But that's not the way they made it seem. You know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they were pulling all from just the comic lore, and I don't think Miles is still young enough, even though he's still been around for like probably 20 30 years.
20.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
One of the best parts of that movie is when they, Spider-Man 2099 catches him, and they're like struggling, and he's got him pinned down. And it's just when Miles is like, he's like, everybody's telling me, like,
trying to
all
tell
this
my
and that,
story.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, and he's like, no, I'm gonna do my own thing, and
I'm
that
telling
shit
my
like
own
almost
story.
made me cry. I was like, damn right.
Those are those Spider-Man moments I'm talking about.
And that was basically what his mother had told him early on in
Yeah.
the film. You know what I mean? So it was nice. And you could see after that, before we found out he was in the wrong universe. You know what I mean? And we can get into that too. But when he was talking to what he thought was his own mother, he was like, now, everybody was telling me how I was supposed to live my life, what I'm supposed to do. And he was like, now I fear nothing. Nothing can stop me. You know what I mean? And that was an awesome speech.
But
Yeah, you're right.
except who can stop him?
Himself.
Yes,
Himself.
himself. Because his own. Now we got spoiler because
that's what
that
we're
is
talking about. Miles is the Prowler in an alternate universe.
Yeah.
Now, all right, well, before we go on anymore with that, there's been, because I'm a fan of the Prowler, the original Prowler in 616, so the regular Marvel Universe, did start off as a petty criminal, but it was like little stuff like robbing, what do they call the corner stores in New York City? You know what I mean? It wasn't like he was doing big crimes, and Spider-Man stopped him, and his speech to him was like, you've got the brains that, like, you made this suit like with shit you had at home. It wasn't like you went to a big name college. You know what I mean? Like, you're a high school student, so I see a lot of me in you. He was like, use your powers for the right thing. And then Prowler was, became a good guy, had his own comic book run. And then something had happened to Spider-Man in the late 90s, and he actually used because his suit is like made out of pneumatics, and he was able to use his suit to successfully impersonate Spider-Man, so nobody knew that the real Spider-Man was gone. And you know what I mean? That was a really cool story. So for me, seeing so many evil Prowlers has been definitely a different aspect of the character. And they've changed. So it's like his Uncle Aaron, but the original Prowler's name was Hobie or Hobby. And
we don't know that Miles Prowler is a bad guy at all. They make it seem kind of like that, but I think maybe that's smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, because that's how they ended the film.
Working together.
But it looked like just the way that he knocked him out. I can't see him as being a good guy.
I don't see. Yeah, I don't see any foreshadowing that could say there's a twist or a turn. Where I could see that with Prowler, like that moment on his deathbed where he's like, "No, Miles, you be you. Keep going, keep doing what you're doing. Don't look at me. You got your own mission. You got your own. You're telling your own story. Continue that." And I think that moment is those little moments where, he could be good. And just like when he's in the alternate universe, when he thinks he's talking to Prowler, but Prowler then becomes himself, he's like, I know there's good in you. I know there's good that you can be more than Prowler. And he's like, I'm not Prowler.
Yeah.
You are.
Yep.
Right.
And that version of him, for one, had already lost his father. You know what I mean? And then when Miles was talking to himself, so talking to the evil him, he's like, yo, our dad is still alive in my universe. And he was like, that's not my father, that's yours. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think honestly, I think they need to say that a lot more in these alternate dimension things. Cause like even Miguel had that moment where he died in a dimension and he tried to live in that dimension and be a father and caused the collapse of that one, which, shows why he was so adamant about not stopping canon events.
So was that his canon event then?
I was just kind of thinking that. I'm like, it's sort of his canon event, but
if there was one, that would probably be it.
That would be it.
Because he did then lose his family.
But that wasn't his family to
Well,
begin with.
Or it could have been the loss of his original family too, though.
or the idea that he could never get it back. It's still, I think, a little
He
bit.
definitely had tragedy in his life.
Yeah, but I think it was a different kind. Plus, he
self-inflicted.
caused his. Yeah, he
Again.
caused his. Yeah,
Just like him driving away any of his family, lovers, or whatever. It's because of him being a fucking dick and
facts.
pushing everyone away.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be a dick, Derek.
From Guardians, or from Ant-Man and the Wasp.
You know, and I almost wondered if we'll see some big turnaround for him where he actually does something selfless.
I would like
sacrificing him, like sacrificing himself to take out
Spot.
I bet he. Yeah, I think that.
That'd be a good redemption arc for him.
Yeah,
but there's like, I'm trying not to make any guesstimations about how this is going to go
for real. Because every time you do, it's
because there's a lot going on. I like the fact that after Miles and Miguel had their argument in front of all of the Spider-Verse, you know what I mean? That there were some that started to second guess Miguel's stand, Spider-Man 2099 stand, and
my favorite was Spider-Punk, and he's like, I quit. Just
wait,
for the record.
quit. He quit early though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, before they even told.
That was when they started chasing Miles. That's when he peaced out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually did what he said, what he told Miles to do, and made his own watch.
Yeah, he did. He made his own watch, and then gave it to Gwen. She was a great character too, and I mean,
there were a lot of MCU people that were voice cast in this film, like Haley Steinfeld, who voices
I just said
Gwen.
IMDb pulled up. Who is she in?
She's Hawkeye's trainee.
Okay. And what about the Indian Spider-Man, who is also the sidekick companion of Deadpool?
Oh, is that Mohinder?
Yeah.
Oh, I knew I recognized that voice.
I was wondering, and I just IMDb'd it while we were talking about something else. I was like, wait, it's got to be that guy. He is. Carney Song?
Oh, yeah, it is him, isn't it?
Yep. And we also have
I knew I
Oscar
recognized
Isaac.
his voice.
Oscar Isaac,
I mean-
who's playing Miguel O'Hara. He was Moon Knight.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Okoye, who played Hobie Spider-Punk, he's in Black Panther. There's at least four people.
So that's who. So the dude from Moon Knight is Miguel O'Hara, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, that's okay. I knew I recognized his voice too.
And like I said, the Spider-Punk guy, that's the first time he's used his English accent on anything I've ever seen him in, because he's always used either an African or an American accent, because it's the same guy from Get Out and Nope. And like I said, he was the guy that was training the rhinos in the first Black Panther film. You know what I mean? So, yeah, there's a lot of connections with the MCU.
And then the other one, once you told me about it, I couldn't stop seeing. So the voice of Miles,
Shamik Moore
is also in Wu-Tang.
Yes.
So I kept wanting him to bust out some Wu-Tang rhymes once in a while.
Right.
Just to throw a little flavor in it, because every once in a while,
Yeah, gotta do that.
Kind of like on I don't know, like the crispy kind of edges of the voice. It gets like, all right, there it is.
Yep.
What were you saying? I don't get the money for it. Can't remember any of it, but yeah.
I like that, and this is what I missed the first time, because I was working on no sleep, so I did pass out for about 10 minutes when I went to go see it with you, Mike. But I was making sure I saw what happened there. So when he saved the Indian Spider-Man's police captain,
Father figure.
yeah,
Father-in-law.
yeah, and that caused, that was the breakdown of a canon event right there. And that's when Gwen started, well, we don't know, you know what I mean? Is that going to cause it? Like, do you know what you think is going to happen is going to happen? Because if there's a possibility that it's not, then we need to look at other ways instead of letting people definitely die. And I think after she talked to her father, and her father was like, yeah, I quit the force. Well, that meant her canon event wasn't going to happen. So
she saw that. She said, okay, now my dad's not going to die because he's no longer captain.
mm-hmm.
you know.
So I think that's and I like, because like I said, I missed that first time around, so that made sense why she was able to get so many spider people on her team. So she went back and got Peter B. Parker, the one that trained him in the first movie. She found Spider-Man Noir, Spider Ham, Penny Parker, you know what I mean, and Spider Bite, the chick that was running all of the computers inside, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She got together her own team, and I like that they were people that you could see were actually broken up and thinking about maybe Miguel's way isn't right, because Spider Bite could have stopped him from teleporting away, because all she had to do was hit that button to reboot the computer, and she didn't.
She's like, she wanted him to go. She said she let him happen. Yeah, she totally did.
So I like that, because that was very realistic. Whenever you have like one of those Gestapo-like characters, it's
and
like
you saw that during the progression of the movie. You'd see those little moments where it was like a, you know, all subconscious with the eyes, you know, just, and they could do that with the cartoon, you know, with an animation. It was like, I mean, just to highlight the art of this movie.
And the way they did Spider-Punk, like I think him and Ben stood out, and even Miguel, like their animations were way different from everybody else's. So we got that very
Gwen to a point too.
Yeah. But we got a lot of her in her own universe.
Yeah.
Like when you get to see Spider-Punk reacting with everybody else, his is massively different.
The guitar bugged me a little bit.
But I liked how they had like the weird panel shit that was going on with
He's
him.
always kind of changing.
Yeah.
And, yeah. But like the blocky guitar.
You didn't like the guitar?
I'm being nitpicky and being a bitch about it, but yeah, like he had a big block outline when he had the guitar on his back. There's a big block outline that kept changing colors, and I thought it was a little bit too much of a distraction. But of all the things to be bitchy about,
yeah, that's that point.
Make your own damn watch.
Yeah. What about on Miguel? Did anybody notice whenever they showed his face without the mask, you kind of got that Vitruvian Michelangelo da Vinci thing on his face, kind of like have you ever seen a comic book artist where they're drawing early on the outlines?
There was a lot of outlines and just kind of just hard lines on his face,
and they were moving too. You know what I mean? And I thought that was cool. Yeah, as a comic book, you know, aficionado, I thought that was another level to the comic book accuracy. Just like I was talking about how they had those little dots, you know what I mean? That made it look like the old 90s, you know, paper before they got into the type of waterproof, expensive paper they use now, you know. I think there was a lot of, other than just the storyline and the characters, that I think they went above and beyond.
They did their homework.
Yeah.
And did another great movie, and hopefully here sooner than later we'll have another.
I remember I told you, and I told Mike as well, when we were about 5 minutes before, you know, we found out that it was going to be to be continued. It reminded me of the second Matrix, because when I went to go see Matrix Reloaded, I didn't know it was going to be a trilogy. I was like, yeah, there's a lot going on, and we've been in here 2 hours and 30 minutes. I don't know how they're going to get this. And then
they packed a lot into it. I mean, this could have easily been 2 or 3, a season-long show.
Yeah.
But I think there was enough there to keep it going, to keep it interesting. It wasn't just kind of peddling on.
And it tied together well, everything.
I mean, it was well executed. You know, it's kind of interesting. You know, Sony has been kind of the underdog in a lot of areas with the MCU ever since Endgame. And now Sony is almost kicking their ass as far as perception, as far as, you know, but they have, what they put out is top class.
I would agree.
You know, where Marvel and Disney have been churning out stuff. Because they're almost trying to win by numbers,
right?
Versus like quality. And not that I think there's good quality stuff in Marvel, but it's almost at its pivotal edge, where it's like, okay, maybe Sony, you did the right move by just keeping Sony,
just keeping Spider-Man. Mm-hmm.
We'll see. I love it when they can collab together and at least play nicely.
Right. I will bring up one thing. Sony does own all the rights to Spider-Man, flat out, which includes like his Rogues Gallery, so like Sinister Six and stuff like that. I will say they have done well with their Spider-Man titles. So
Yes.
the Spider-Man with Tom Holland,
Morbius.
Morbius I had hopes for that. That one sucked. Venom 1 and 2 were okay, but they weren't like knock them out the ballparks. And those are still Sony films
True.
that have ties to the MCU, but they're not actual MCU films. Those are still Sony films.
I liked him, but I also didn't want to put that critical eye on the Venom movies.
Right.
Because I enjoyed them and I didn't want to overthink it, because if I started getting into the Venom lore, you could just easily tear it apart.
Right.
So I wanted to be able to kind of enjoy Venom on the big screen for what it was, and be nice about it, versus I'm more critical of comics sometimes.
Right.
All right, you got to earn my next $5 for that next issue.
Right. And I think when you've got years going by instead of a month, you know what I mean, for the difference between movies and comics, it makes a difference.
So one thing I want to talk about real quick is with Miles. There's the new run of Miles Morales. It's Carnage Reigns. And if you see, there's on this cover, if you're just listening and not, we have Carnage kind of holding Miles up in a dilapidated suit, kind of by a
knife to his throat. It's
been a pretty solid run. I mean, obviously this is only the second issue. It feels very, if you like Carnage in that kind of horror-esque, it's so far been a pretty good miniseries. Follow us on Instagram and YouTube. I'm going to be putting out videos as far as the reviews of what I think about it. I'm always curious about what everybody else thinks too. So, comment. But it feels very Absolute Carnage, which was the Donny Cates.
I remember that.
That was an amazing run. So what it did was Carnage was collecting all of the codex, which were the different pieces of the symbiote that lived in other people. Like Spider-Man once had Venom, so he has a codec in him. So anybody who was host to the parasite of a symbiote had a piece of this codec, and they were going through and like serial killing all of them to get all this and bring back, resurrect Carnage, because Carnage was dead. Mm-hmm. We had Harry Osborn as Carnage. So there's a lot of kind of cool stuff going into the series, and it gives that kind of vibe. But we're getting Miles into it. Miles is the main character here versus the Peter Parker in the Absolute Carnage. I'm hoping they're not too much the same, but so far it's looking pretty good.
And I just ordered mine, so thank you for letting me know it was out.
Yeah. And it's a small run, so I think that gives me hope that Marvel won't totally fuck it up.
Yeah, because that was 2 of 7?
Yeah. And there's a lot of Carnage, Venom stuff coming out this summer. They're doing the Summer of Symbiotes, so there's Venom, Carnage shit out the ass. So if you like that kind of stuff, again, I'm going to do my reviews on Facebook. Venomverse. So everybody's doing the multiverse too. Jumping back into the multiverse, the drop about Doctor Strange fixing Peter Parker.
Oh yeah,
in Spider-Man, and he said he called it a universe that wasn't 616.
Yes,
it was like 99.9 or something,
mm-hmm.
or what.
And that was early on when Miguel was first introduced to Gwen,
mm-hmm.
and they were fighting that Vulture from the medieval Vulture. Yeah, I caught that.
That was interesting.
Maybe somebody with the name Strange shouldn't be a doctor.
But so, is it really 616? Is the MCU 616?
And I've been saying it needs to have its own classification, especially.
I don't think it should be. I think it should be a different number, personally.
Yeah. And everything now that's starting to happen is outside, and I think it's good. Like they followed enough canon with the characters that now I think it needs to go a different direction in the books, because if it doesn't, why even have a separate medium? If everything is going to follow the comic books, why put it into film? You know what I mean?
True. I mean, it needs to evolve. It means a different medium.
Mm-hmm.
And the medium is the massage. So this is a play on the word of play on the words.
Mm-hmm.
Medium is the message. Not a typo. Unlike my writing.
So
yeah,
one
definitely.
thing that I wanted to bring up about Miles, the Prowler version.
Mm-hmm.
Is his look and like the braids that he had and shit.
Right.
He
Riley
looks
and
fucking badass.
he does, but doesn't that remind you of? I don't know if you've seen the Boondocks, but that's what I thought of. The two brothers in Boondocks. One of them has an afro, and the other one has braids, and one of them's the more intelligent one, and the other one's more hot headed. I don't know if that was on purpose, but you definitely get that with the two different versions of Miles. You know what I mean?
And I think in the comic where we had the evil clone, there was something different about the hair too. There, that's what it reminded me of. Just because, it's fresh out of the Marvel comic book run,
Right.
so it had that same vibe to it. I almost thought that's what it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
In that comic run, one another spoiler for the comic.
Let's go.
So, Uncle Aaron is used as a human battery
Oh,
to keep this micro universe alive.
wow.
So that's what the evil Miles is using him as a human battery.
And that's just in the comic book universe.
That's in the comic book universe. Not this volume of Miles Morales, but the one right before it. It was a shorter run, kind of right after. It was part of the Clone Saga.
I have those. I still have to read them.
Interesting.
It's a good run. Everything from the main Miles Morales comic run is solid. I mean, there's some times where it feels like it's kind of stalling, waiting for the next big fucking MCU event.
Right.
But it's solid written. It's entertaining. I just
hope we get Miles in the MCU soon.
It's got to happen.
Yeah, I would think with the way they tied it in with
Lawyers, guns, and money.
Yeah, with them putting those live action tidbits in with this anime. Oh, which brings me to something. I actually spoke to Brandon Whittemore because he had posted something in the Comic Zone Facebook group, and I deleted it, which I never do. You know what I mean? Because we're a very open group.
What is a spoiler or what?
It was kind of a spoiler. Now, since we're already talking about spoilers on the show, it said that there was a scene that got cut, and I'm really hoping when this comes out on video, it's on there, that shows like a fight of live action, like a live action Prowler versus Miles. So I don't know if that's Donald Glover and who they picked to, maybe they even got Shamik Moore, the voice, to play Miles, but all it said, I didn't click on the link because, like I said, I took it down for people that hadn't seen the movie because it hasn't even been out a week yet, and I didn't want, you know what I mean? And I told him, I reached out to him, and I was like, hey, I deleted it, and this is why, you know what I mean? I was like, because I would have been pissed if I would have found out that there were going to be live action aspects in an animated movie, you know what I mean? Because remember how hyped we got when we saw Donald Glover's Prowler, and then when we saw Tobey Maguire and we saw Andrew Garfield. Like if somebody would have told us that was going to happen, that would have taken away some of the shock value, you know what I mean? So, but knowing that there's a scene out there, I do want to see it now.
We just missed Bruce Campbell.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm glad you said that because dude that's been voicing.
Oh yeah, he was in there, wasn't he?
Bruce Campbell wasn't. At least I didn't see him.
I didn't see him.
But the same guy that's been doing J. Jonah Jameson.
Oh, yeah.
The insurance guy. The hell's his name?
Yeah, and he's still fucking even in the animated movie.
Yep.
Like he's the perfect guy. It doesn't matter. They can't find a better one.
No, yeah, J.K. Simmons. So yeah, he voiced the character in this film too, and you can see him like he voiced it in the Lego version. You know what I mean?
Pictures of Spider-Man.
Was he in the Amazing Spider-Man? He wasn't He wasn't in Andrew Garfield's shit, was he?
No, but he was in Tobey Maguire's. I don't think he was.
How
in.
amazing
I don't think
would
the
that
character
be if
was
he
in
was
there.
in all of them?
What's up?
So how amazing would it be if he was in all of them?
That would be. You know what I mean?
So fun fact about the Lego cameo. So in the scene that they were showing was actually from the Lego. There's a Daily Bugle Lego set. It's like four stories tall with Jay Jonas. And that's what they were showing inside that when he went into the stall and into the bathroom. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. It was the actual model that you can buy from Lego.com.
That's Sony be up. You know what? I bet you it is, because Sony gets rights for stuff like Legos and stuff like that. In the same
Product
token,
placement.
yeah.
Oh,
When
I was going to ask you, Bill, that fucking, just that whole scene. What did you think of all that? The Lego
I loved
universe.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, because you love Lego, and like I was like, oh, Bill's gonna love this fucking
it's
part.
like Lego MCU is MCU now officially.
but another Sony placement, when he after he fought the Spot and defeated him the first time, when he's swinging back into his school dormitory room and his roommates playing video games on the bed and wearing his Jordans, he's playing the Spider-Man video game for PlayStation.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I noticed all his headphones had
pointed
Sony.
And they were like that in the first film too. And it's the same
Yeah,
way
I
with the
pointed that out to Sean.
Yeah,
I was
you
like,
pointed
"Look,
it out,
he's
yeah.
Spider-Man." And like, I'm glad he came back through the room so you could see it for sure.
Yep.
Because I thought it was just gonna be a quick little.
They're selling
But it
custom
was the
Jordans
new
like
game.
that now too,
Oh yeah.
because of Miles, and also Burger King has their Red Whopper.
Yep. Which is good. I've had one.
Did it
Tastes
change your-
different.
No, did it change the color of your stool?
I refuse to look. But probably.
I didn't want to know, but I had to ask.
But I think that Burger King place was in there too. When he was running away from him, he ran across.
Oh,
the
you
table.
did. Yeah, there's a picture of the burger. He ran across the table, and those red buns.
Also, 'cause somebody else had mentioned, I think it might even have been Beth, your wife, was talking about, or was it? I can't remember who it was, but somebody had mentioned. Oh, I think it was Mary actually. Was talking about the shoes. Now we've always known that Miles wore the Jordans, the original Jordans, before he had the Jumpman logo. They still had the swoosh, the Nike swoosh. But Gwen's shoes were Converse. I recently found out, and I'm talking about within like the last 6 months, that Nike has owned Converse for like the last 10, 12 years. So that's why, because even in TV live action, they're very careful about product placement. You know what I mean? You have to pay for shit like that. And there's Nike, Coca-Cola, and Converse all over both of these films.
So the second one I noticed, it said generic soda.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't say Coca-Cola
Nope.
or a variation of it. It's just a generic cola or soda.
Soda, yeah.
So
but I think that's
so they
something
didn't pay then.
and that might have been on purpose. Like, hey, Coke, where's our money for this film?
Fuck you missed out, suckers. Biggest, and it's like breaking records the first week too, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So
If you have not seen it, go out and see it. See it twice. It's an excellent movie.
It's just the ending. How about that ending?
You know what? It needed to happen. And now we're just, like I said, I hope like The Matrix, we don't have to wait another year or two. Like I'm hoping later on this year, even if it's a Christmas release, I hope we get the second part sometime in 2023.
They're gonna make us wait a year, dude.
You think so?
At the very least. Oh yeah.
this is possible.
Oh, I hope they don't.
Like an end game, dude. It's gonna build the suspense, and everybody will want to know what the fuck's gonna happen.
There wasn't a year between Endgame and Infinity War, was there? I thought it was like 8 months.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Was it
it
a
was
year?
like a year,
I don't know.
which was brutal.
Yeah, especially the way they ended it.
And that's kind of the way this movie ends. It's like on that same kind of cliffhanger.
I'm gonna Google. Let's see if we get lucky. See if we can find out when we're getting it. Third Spider-Verse movie. Come on, release date.
They're not gonna.
Oh, ouch. You're right. It's scheduled to be released on March 29th, 2024. So almost a year. We're in June. Damn.
Well,
Yeah,
as long
and I
as they don't
almost
fuck it
wonder if
up. That's my.
And I almost wonder if they made this all as one big movie, and then just kind of they already have it finished. You know what I mean?
It wouldn't surprise me, like I said, because the way they had that post-credit scene, at least even if they hadn't filmed, because it's not like filming where you have people there, you know what I mean? Like they had to have animatron, the animators and all that other stuff. I think they knew where they were going with the story if they hadn't completed it already. But that's a pretty good job of keeping that a secret. And I will say, I have been staying off of places like IMDb until after the movie comes out, because I haven't wanted to see these spoilers, and it's been great not knowing what was going to happen. So
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the trailer for this movie didn't give anything away.
not really.
You know what I
No,
mean?
it didn't.
Nothing that the post-credit scenes didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, you had no idea that Spot would end up being the big bad.
Facts.
It's like it looked like he was just a throwaway villain that, even in the beginning of the movie, he felt like he was just a villain to throw at him so they could have a fight sequence
Yeah.
in the beginning.
Yep. To show why he wasn't at school with his parents.
And he keeps up with the "I'm your nemesis."
But by the time we got to the end of the movie, Miles said he was like, he is my nemesis.
He is my nemesis.
Yeah. Which is cool. I like that he's not anything like any of Peter Parker's villains. And I love the fact that they made him so powerful by the end.
Yeah, because the Spot has been a character before, and I don't think he started in Miles. I'll have to do my research on that. But
I think he was Spider-Man.
yeah,
I think I actually have that first appearance.
but yeah, he was a very corny one fight get caught character.
I hope
Right.
he can be
you'd
redeemed.
expect to see.
I would love to see Miles try and
expect
redeem him. At least
You
try.
would expect him to beat him in the beginning, and then have him hanging in front of the police station,
Right.
from a light pole.
Yeah, like how he did Kingpin in the first film.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Spectacular Spider-Man 97, the first appearance
of Spot.
of Spot.
What year was that?
1994.
Ooh, that was about the time I started reading.
I think I've got that one.
Oh, it's gonna be worth some money now.
It's worth after the movie comes out. No,
You think?
I might. I don't know if I have this one or not. But he was fighting Peter Parker.
That's what I thought.
No, that's the range that I collect of that era of Spider-Man comics because it's got the blurb with the Marvel and when Spider-Man's in the black suit. Those are what I usually go for. And I'm pretty. If I don't have it, it is on my list of things that I want.
I'd say you might want to get it before. I remember what happened to my New Mutants 98 after Deadpool, the movie, came out.
He's going to be in a second movie, so.
Yep.
My video transitions are doing weird stuff. It keeps going back to my spoiler. Nobody would have noticed until I said anything.
But all in all, definitely a great. You had your laugh moments, you had your darn near crying moments, you had those hold your breath, what's about to happen moments. I think it had everything.
Laugh
you
off
want.
your ass moments.
Yeah, everything you could possibly want and need from a Spidey movie. You have it there.
I think that's a.
Yeah, I mean, it's really not missing much at all, and it felt very much like No Way Home.
Yeah, in certain aspects, especially like things like with the fan service, the tie-ins to other past Spider lore. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's so much there. It's so rich and like you said, like you get, like even making Ben Reilly all tortured and dramatic like that, that's like accurate. You know what I mean? They're being hyper accurate with every single thing that's happening in this movie. And that's part of what makes it so good.
I want to do some more homework on the pregnant spider lady, because I don't know much about. I will say her powers matched the original Spider Woman, because her powers were nothing like Peter's. You know what I mean? She was more of a like a telekinesis, like, you know what I mean? Her powers weren't spider based. Like, she didn't get bit by a spider. You know what I mean? She was like a mutant or something that just adopted the name, and she looked like her. Her costume looked like her. Her powers seemed similar.
I almost thought it was going to be the chick from Luke Cage.
Misty Stone.
I almost thought it was going to be because she's all over in Miles comics right now.
Oh, really?
Almost like the same archetype in Spider-Verse that she was, kind of. So that's was like, oh, this was her. It's like, oh, nope, it's not somebody else. But
That might be worth looking into though, because like I said, I've kind of stayed off IMDb a little bit lately because there's so many new releases. We got Flash getting ready to come out, Transformers getting ready to come out, Rise of the Beast. So I've been kind of staying away from IMDb for spoilers' sake. But I'm betting there might be some tie-ins there too, because she said something about how her husband was a beautiful guy. You know what I mean? So I'm wondering,
Luke Cage.
yeah, if it's Luke Cage, and you know what I mean. Alternate. It's alternate universe, so it's a possibility. So that is something I'm gonna look up.
I think we're getting close to wrapping it up. Is there anything final words?
I give the movie, like I said, I think a 10 out of 10. It's amazing, no pun intended.
And
But,
spectacular.
I mean, if you're a Spider-Man fan, I mean, this is the movie. Like,
If
it
you're
doesn't get any better than this. That's
And
for
even
damn
if you're a
sure.
casual fan, like I think this is another one of those movies that a casual fan would really like. You know what I mean? Whether it's a parent that's taking their kid that just likes Spider-Man because they like Spider-Man, like I don't think you have to be a comic book aficionado to enjoy this film.
No, you don't need to know
Anything.
I mean, it's good to know the first movie.
Yeah.
But I think also if you're a comic book fan and not even a big if you enjoy reading comics, this is a good film. It's got everything you need. And if you're good, and me as a comic book reader and a Spider-Man fan, it was awesome. Miles or Peter or Ben Reilly, they're all good in my book.
Oh yeah.
And having them all together, aces.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all agree this is a 100%, maybe. Do you think it's better than the first one, or do you
I think it's better because as far like the first one broke ground as far as animated films go, and I think it was very well done. But I think this one as a sequel, because I also think it's difficult to outdo yourself. You know what I'm saying? And I think everything they did was just as good or taking it to the next level. So I personally think it's a little bit better.
I would say better,
just
not
because it
because
expanded the idea? Is that why?
Possibly.
I think there's something to do that same. I think it was better because it was able to keep the same quality of standard and make you want more.
There you go. That's a
I
good
mean, to
Right.
kind of get that
And they gave you more too.
it didn't make you feel like you missed something or felt left out, or you didn't get what you wanted. You got everything you wanted. Everything you needed was right there in there. And it built on what was there before. And then it gave you, hey, there's more coming.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, I think they're moving in the right direction. They get the right creative types in the mix. That's the next movie is going to be very well received.
I would agree.
It definitely leaves you wanting more, and like we definitely I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
But yeah, I think it was great, and like it's and like we were saying, yeah, it definitely leaves you, and not just because I think even if it would have ended, which I'm glad it didn't, because like I said, there was just too much going on, and trying to rush an ending would have been foul. So as long as we get this third film and it's cohesive like the first two were, you know what I mean, we get to a point. I'm guessing there's going to be a battle between the two Spider teams. You know what I mean? Because Miguel has the Spider Woman and
At least-
Ben and a couple more.
Whether it's physical or intellectual,
Yeah.
yes. Or hopefully a combination of both.
And we're going to see whatever's going on with Spot, Miles, and Prowler Miles. Like there's definitely enough going on where I think it's going to be a full movie in and of itself, and it should be just as impactful and satisfying as the first two.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the next one should be just, hopefully it just knocks it out of the park even better than these two.
Yeah.
You know, and they wrap it up in a really satisfying way. And then I think a good move is, like Bill was saying, is that after these movies, maybe like with the success of them, they could maybe start like a series, and that would be interesting.
Well, I know they're already talking about doing a Gwen series. So
That would be good.
I don't know if it's going to be a series or a movie. I saw when I was looking up the release date to this that Sony is actually thinking about doing a separate Gwen line on it. You know what I mean? So I don't know if it's going to be another movie or if it's going to be a series. But
So jump thought here back to Spider-Punk. There's a band. Oh crap! But he gives me, as far as punk rock, there's a band, Bad Brains. They're old school, like Jamaican dreadlock dudes, just being punk rock, screaming and yelling in the
right,
very primitive kind of sound. It's like not Bob Dylan, Bob Villain. But he sounds exactly like him. His attitude fits him. Now that I bring him up, I totally spaced the name. But
are they English?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So he sounds.
Are you thinking they got inspiration from that guy for that character? Is that what you're saying?
I got those kind of vibes. Yes. I need to find his real freaking name now. I'm pissed at myself. Damn it, brain! Why can't you remember all this obscure punk rock?
It's kind of fun. You said the band's name was Bad Brains.
No, this is the old school band. Now they definitely pulled from Bad Brains.
Okay.
Like YouTube them, check out their video. I mean, like the music itself, as far as quality, it's not the best. It's a guitar. They didn't have a lot of musical knowledge, but they had energy. Mm-hmm. I mean, insane energy on the stage, and that's what you like. I mean, like an explosion as a concert sounds.
Right.
You know the hip hop vibe, but with that kind of militant attitude, but in kind of a punk rock form. Again, the songs quality. Now you listen to them and you go, "Oh, that sounds like they recorded in a garage," because they probably did.
Right.
But they definitely pulled from, and they've got some really cool icons. I bet if you've seen some of their imagery, you've seen it. I think it's like almost like a Jamaican flag, but kind of in a lightning bolt shape.
I'll have to look it up. Definitely have to look that up.
But he's like, I can't even do it justice. But no, they definitely. But
sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I mean, I keep talking over you guys. I think it's kind of hard to like doing this over the phone. It's kind of weird. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So if it's been a little clunky, we apologize. But, we're doing what we have to here to make.
I've been on the other side
so
quite a few times, so I understand.
Yeah, I think we've called you.
Yeah, a couple times. Yeah.
Show,
especially during them
it's always
awful.
A little clunky with it. It's just hard to,
Yep. Delays
and
whatnot.
Mm-hmm. So, I'm glad you went and watched it, though, Bill. I mean, I thought you weren't going to be able to this week. And I was like,
I pressed the issue. I pressed the issue.
He convinced Beth to go see it, so that she went over my head and went to Beth.
He went to the boss.
That's right.
That's right.
Go to the wives.
What?
And she's not going to tell you no.
What?
She? No, I'm saying she's not going to tell Sean no.
Well, you know what? The reason I pressed the issue is because remember when what must have been game night or something, the basketball game night, where she said she wasn't going to watch it, And when she texted me and was like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna watch it," and I was like, "Ooh, good. Now's the time." I was like, "Hey, make sure." Because remember, Bill said he didn't watch the post-credit scene. I was like, all right, first and foremost, make sure Bill sees the post-credit scene. And then after she finished it, I was like, all right, let's go see it again. Well, for me again, for them the first time.
Yeah, dude, I'm completely satisfied with this movie, and like getting this right after Guardians, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like we're finally getting some like continue, like everything's getting to be pretty damn good right now. Like as comic book movie fans and all that kind of thing, we're living in like the best time ever. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Well, we've
Like,
been
it's
saying this for
amazing.
a while, but I think we're definitely we're getting back on track. Like I said, I think part of the reason I've said this quite a few times, I think after Endgame, a lot of folks were like, all right, you had 60 different heroes and villains in one film, and it was going to be hard to top that story-wise, lies, shock factor-wise. And now that we've had, the different TV shows, and not just Marvel, same with DC, you know what I mean? And even some of, like Sandman, those
More Black
independents,
Label.
yeah, that are coming out doing theirs. I think now that they've gotten a chance to choose what they wanted to watch and what they weren't going to watch. And now, I think we're getting back to where I think we're getting that solid quality. And I don't think it was necessarily bad quality before, but I think it was, once you've seen air quotes everything and something as a big of an event as Endgame, it's definitely hard to come back with something else after it. And I think, we're getting back to the point where I think people would agree that it's quality content without comparing it to some of those other films.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. And a good place to end the episode.
Duh.
How long we been going, Bill? I'm sorry, I don't really have a.
We're getting close to about an hour and a half, so it's a good time to say
perfect.
make sure you're listening to us on Spotify, rate and review, and everything you need to know. YouTube, Twitter,
TikTok,
Ticker Talker,
and just go to the comiczone.com. And that's comics with an X. Pow, 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 pow.
We'll be back
You know
next.
what? Who's gonna say it?
Oh, that's Bill's thing. He's got to say it.
Keep it black.
Yeah.